So obviously the AVOD space is growing a ton, especially due to COVID last year. We've seen the linear ratings declining, and we've noticed, especially with the custom audiences that we're looking to target for our clients, they're going to the AVOD space. So it really makes sense to use AVOD as almost a linear TV complement or supplement to find that additional reach that we're looking for, where we're not getting it as much in TV anymore.
So what kind of clients do you work with, and also what kind of clients, what are campaigns looking like for various categories on AVOD, or are there any particular categories that are more appropriate?
Yeah, so I would say, one of the biggest clients we have is in the retail space. So obviously sales is very important to them. They have a lot of first party data that they're looking into. We work with other brands in the spirits category, in the home improvement category, so kind of across the board. And I would say, honestly, and even clients that I've worked with in the past, AVOD is becoming more and more important, despite what the category is, despite the age demographic that we're trying to hit. Obviously, we know that AVOD is continuing to grow, not only with the younger millennial audience, but the older demographics as well. So I would say, as far as buying in the AVOD space, there's more measurement opportunities, right? It's able to be tracked a little bit easier than traditional linear TV. There's still issues, I would say, as far as measurement goes, and just the deduplication across linear and AVOD. But we're looking for those eyeballs, and that's where the clients are going, or that's where consumers are going, is in the AVOD space. So it really just makes sense to utilize it as a reach extender, as you mentioned, and just be where the consumers are.
Now, getting to where the consumers are requires a lot of data, and you referenced the retailers certainly have a lot of first-party data, which is valuable. What other data signals are you using, or would you like to use in planning and optimizing more effectively?
Yeah, so obviously the first-party data is really important. We work with a lot of third-party data providers as well to kind of hone in on our custom audience to really determine where our ideal customers are. I think the biggest thing for us is really understanding the video landscape holistically, and using as much data as we can to kind of back up the reason why we're buying what we're buying across our campaigns.
So what's interesting in terms of data? Is ACR data interesting? I mean, what are the tool chests that you use, and what would you like to be using?
Yeah, so I personally think ACR data is wonderful, especially with competitive conquesting. I've used ACR partners a lot for past clients before, who are really looking to kind of either find the competitive conquesting audiences and hit the audiences that are seeing their competitors' spots and really drive home messaging, or just as to decrease linear activation and really not make sure that we're not overdoing it on the frequency, and making sure that we're hitting the audiences across both linear and digital.
Now, sort of the expectations, the consumer preferences is shaping the experience. What's important around ad load and frequency and other aspects of the consumer experience that you need to sort of take into consideration now?
Yeah, so I would say obviously ad load is always important. We don't want to be muddled, in a pod of 15 other advertisers. I would say frequency is actually almost more important, especially with certain AVOD players. We've all been watching streaming services where we're seeing the same ads over and over and over, and it almost has an adverse effect on the viewer. So that's something that we're really monitoring across all of our partners, and making sure that we have pretty stringent frequency caps in place, and we're monitoring it across the board.
So I wanted to ask finally about programmatic and how buying is different. I know programmatic has been part of AVOD since early on, and it's becoming widely used in the industry. But I wanted to ask about the programmatic pipes, working with the sell side, how that works, and kind of where it's going, and how you'd like to see that develop.
Yeah, so, I think programmatic obviously is a really important factor of our overall video buying methodology. It's still kind of an area that needs to be demystified a bit, I would say. There's not as much transparency in the programmatic space, especially with CTV, as we would like. So our biggest goal is to determine where it makes sense to buy programmatically, whether if we're focusing on more of a data-driven campaign, if we buy that programmatically, if we're buying across multiple partners and we're trying to get inventory that we might not be able to get directly, that's really important. But I would say the biggest factor that we're looking at for direct buys versus programmatic is, the transparency, and also, if there's any added value opportunities or attribution studies that we're looking into that might not be available in the programmatic space. But again, if we're just looking at reach and we're trying to cast as wide a net as possible, programmatic is obviously the way to go.